was more like people talking about high skills, coding, front end, different skills, and all. So that's like one of my basic reasons for just going into tech, personal development. Yeah, personal development.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I would say my students don't like money yet, so nobody is enticed by the money in tech. But I always tell you, you don't put money first in tech. Though money is going to come, but you have to put in the work. So I would just give a brief introduction of myself. I know Ike has done it in the last during the onboarding session, but I am a front-end developer. I work in the hospitality tech industry. The tech industry has so many different fields, but I work in the hospitality tech industry, which is just an arm of the tech industry. I never studied computer science. I studied history and sociology, but now I'm a software developer, focusing majorly on front end, though I know a little bit of back end. So once again, I'm going to welcome you to the class now. Can you just put your hands down? We are going into the class now. So when we have to speak, you can always raise up your hand. Please confirm you can see my slide. And yeah, so our topic for today, our general topic for this code camp is we are focusing on front end development. And yeah, front end tech in its own is a very wide field. There is front end, there's back end, there's cyber security, there is all manner of field in tech. And at a point, you are going to be confused. You are going to be confused because at every point when you want to go into an ocean, the ocean is very big. And the first thing you just have to do, by the time you just go to YouTube or online, they just drop you right in the middle of the ocean without taking you through the step. Okay, you have to put your one leg, you have to put one leg into the water then before you put two legs. And also, most times, many beginners are confused. Yes, I've been in your state some times ago. That was, I think, in 2020 before Codecamp came to my rescue. At every point, I just went right into it and I started from an intermediate phase. I joined Codecamp. There is something called HNG. HNG is actually a boot camp where you just practice your skills. But then I just went into it thinking it was a learning platform. But unfortunately for me, it was not a learning platform. It was where you are going to practice your skill. But Codecamp came to my rescue, and at that point, yes, here am I today. I can look back and say yes, Codecamp gave me the ground which I am currently standing upon, and I'm grateful for the organizers. Engineer Nibet, he has been a wonderful father to us right from the beginning till this time. So, what is web development? Uh, Web development is just an arm in software development. There's web development, there's web app development, there's mobile app development. So web development just refers to you creating beautiful user interfaces for your users to access. Right before now, most times, if you want to visit some places, before tech it became before Obasanjo brought tech into Nigeria, you can't you can't make phone calls. You have to write letter through the postal night post and move. You have to take weeks before you respond. But now, what you just have to do, you just have to log into your phone, and the next thing you just have to do is you send a message, and the individual at the other end, maybe thousands of miles away, gets your information and come back. Web development gives visibility to brand. Each brand nowadays, you don't need to basically have a shop somewhere. Just have a website, and everything you need to do is basically on the website. You just create a website. Your informations are there. Anyone who needs your information, they just access your website, and the next thing they do is you are all in business together. You are ordering, you are selling, and you are doing all manner of things, which is making life very easy for everyone. The basic tools that are used to development to development of websites is both HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I can tell you, in the during the course of last week, I asked a question in the chat box on Discord channel, which is HTML a programming language? No, there are so many discussions around that, and I could tell you, HTML is never a programming language. HTML is basically just the structure of the website. It's used for the skeleton, and we're looking at the human anatomy. your skeletal system is the bone, which is your HTML structure. Your skin is the CSS, and the activities you do with your body is JavaScript. So that's just the basic anatomy of the web. Your skeletal system is the HTML, is the your flesh is the CSS, and the activities you do is JavaScript. So right to the next slide, which is the difference between web development and web design. Some people confuse it. What is web design? What is web development? Though they are kind of intertwined, but web development on its own is you translating design into code. Let's look at the building industry, for example. When you want to build a house, you get your land, you give an architect to draw your plan. In the software engineering line, the architect is someone who is referred to as the UI/UX designer. So the UI/UX designer gives you a plan, and after they have given you a visual structure of how it's going to look like, how the color, the font, and everything. Basically, web design involves the visual color, the typography, usability, elements. Okay, what is this going to do? What is that going to do? They give you a basic structure of everything that your website is going to do. Then they pass it on to the web developer, a front-end developer, to implement this design in regards to what you have seen. So the architect passes the design he has built, the building plan, to the builder, and the builder begins to build. That is basically how HTML, web design and web development means in both sense. So you just basically have to and most times you don't necessarily need a UI/UX designer. You just go online, you search for inspiration, and by seeing a picture, you can implement it into code. And that is why we are here to guide you. You don't need to know everything from scratch. We are here for you. So what is the next thing is web development. Web development involves using codes like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, Next.js, which is all for the front end. And for the back end, you have Python, JavaScript, C++, PHP, which are currently in use, and are still going to be in use to develop applications, which we are seeing. And also one thing I want to chip in now is that there's a difference between web application and website development. Who can tell me the difference between a website and a web app? Can someone anyone raise up their hand? Okay. Stalin, can you tell me the difference between web application and website? Go ahead, Stanley. Stanley, if you can hear me, go ahead. Oh, okay. Hilary, go ahead.
Okay, sir. The question is web app and website. Web page.
Website, web page, website, web app.
Hello,
Difference.
sir.
What's the difference in both of them? Oh, Hilary, I thought you were saying something.
Yes, sir. I said
Hello?
the question. First of all, you said difference between web page and website. Then second, you said web app and website. So which one should I answer?
Anyone you have the answer to, just answer. You can answer the both
Okay.
of them.
Okay. From my previous knowledge, website is collection of different web page. Web page is just a single interface in a website. Then for web app is a website that can function as an app. It will have an icon in your phone. So let me give an illustration of book. Book is a website. One of the front page is a web page. So collection of web page makes a website, just as pages makes a book.
Okay. Thank you very much, Hilary, for that. Okay. The difference between a website and a web app is that for a website, is just a basic collection of informations. Okay, You go to a website, let's use Kodecamp, for example, the Kodecamp website. Yes, Kodecamp website is there. You just collect information. It's just for informational sake. And the LMS platform which you are going to be using is a web application, in the sense that is on the web, but is an application, just like your mobile app. But your mobile app, for a web application, you don't need to download it on your phone. For a mobile app, you have to download it on your phone. If you check the likes of PiggyVest, PiggyVest has a website. By the time you want to go into your PiggyVest account, you can use the web app or you can use the website. That's where you have the moment you click on login. You are meant to click on your login. That means you are going into the web app. Though it's on the website, but it is a web app. It is accessible on the web, and most times they do translate a web app into a mobile app. You can use the likes of React Native, Flutter, and many other programming languages. So that is the difference between a website and a web app. Your normal website is just for informational sake, while your web app is for applications. Okay, you are performing some activities such as transactions and the like. So that is what your web app is for. So is there anyone, if you have any question at any point in time, you can just raise up your hand, indicate do not unmute unless you are asked to unmute. So front-end development. What is front-end development? Front-end development is Paul, you have a question? Okay. Please make it short. You can unmute and speak, Paul.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to ask that you said a website is just for basic collection of information, right?
Yeah.
Then a web app is containing application that drive direct to our mobile phones, right?
Yeah.
So are you saying that it's basically all websites do not have web application? It's not all websites that have web applications?
Yes, that's the simple meaning. Not all websites have web application. If I have a portfolio website, it's a website, but not an application. Not an application. So my portfolio website is just a website. Why my online banking, why doing it via the web is a web application. That's how it is. So did I clear your doubts?
Yes, thank you, yes.
All right, you're welcome. Yeah, so for the front end aspect of things, it's still the same language that you're going to use to develop your website. You're going to use to develop your website, your web application. So for your website, you use HTML and CSS. Definitely, you don't necessarily need a JavaScript. You don't necessarily need JavaScript for a portfolio website. Yeah, I have my portfolio website. I want you to contact me. I just have an HTML form and the likes. But by the time I want that form to send information, okay, you want to contact me, your name, your email, and your phone number, and any message you want to give to me, I need JavaScript to perform the function. So all the time, if you now want to build a web application, it's going to be much work for you to be using HTML, CSS to build a web application, because that's why the likes of frameworks such as Next.js, React, Angular, Vue, that's why they come into play, for you to be able to build faster and scalable products. Because if you are using HTML and CSS and JavaScript to build a web application, as you begin to grow, you can't tell me if someone told you that Zoom is built on HTML and CSS and JavaScript. Zoom is a very big application, and at every point in time, there's going to be lapses. It's going to be very difficult to maintain that code base at every point in time. Why you make use of React and all these frameworks is that for maintenance and scalability. When you begin to go from your first 100 users to 1,000 users, your app is already growing. You need to be able to maintain your data and everything about your website. So if you want to redesign your website at any point, you don't necessarily need to go redesign everything. You just go to a particular part of it if you are using React, because your codes are going to be reusable. That's what React does. They build in small scale. They build each component. I don't want to go into React at this point, but just an overview of it. You just build in small pieces and you bring everything together. But HTML and CSS, you have to build a particular place, and there will be duplication of code all around the places, which is not a good practice. So let me give you a brief intro into HTML. So I talked about you'll be using Code Sandbox. Code Sandbox. Code Sandbox is an online editor. It's basically an online editor where you don't need to download it on your system. All you just need to do is go to the website, have an account, and you are in. So this is, if you're having any difficulties, you can always reach out. So this is the Code Sandbox website. This is called codesandbox.io. Another variant of it is CodePen. But there are some flexibility which CodePen does not give you. Yeah, Emmanuel, we are eventually going to use Visual Studio Code, but it's always a good practice. Not everybody has started using VS Code. There should be a transition from okay, I am using this online IED, and eventually I move into VS Code. And also, not everybody's system has the power, has the ability to run Visual Studio Code. Most times, along the line, your system begins to lag. That is why an online code editor is actually advisable for most people which their system is not that strong. No, Paul, you using Visual Studio Code now, there's no issues. It's still the same thing. It's still the same code you are going to write in Visual Studio Code. They are going to write on Code Sandbox. The implementation, the logic behind every code are the same, but the platform to write it is always different. So just go ahead on to Code Sandbox and you create an account for free. Once you have created an account, I have an account on Code Sandbox, so I don't need to create a new account. So that is it. So I just come here, I come to my workspace. I have a workspace called Learning already. So I can explore a template. That's one beautiful thing of Code Sandbox. You can always, Code Sandbox is also integrated to your VS Code, and is also integrated to your GitHub account. So if you write a code on Code Sandbox, you can get it into your Visual Studio Code if your account are synchronized together. So that is why, as I said, it's Code Sandbox and Visual Studio Code. They are just the same thing. It's just that one is an online version and one is an offline version. So we are exploring a template. We are not using any of these templates. We are going to be making use of HTML and CSS. You can see that HTML and CSS is a template on Code Sandbox. So once I click on HTML and CSS, it gives me a template. Let me use Introduction to HTML. That's the title. Please hope everyone is following and there's no issues. If you have any issue, just let me know. So it's creating the Introduction to HTML dev box. And this is what, once it has installed, it gives you a unable to start a microservice. This is a network issue from Code Sandbox, but I'm going back to my dashboard to create it. So still the same thing. It's loading my editor.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
You are not allowed to unmute without being told to unmute. Do you know that? Hello, Idris. You wanted to say something? Go ahead.
All right. Sorry for that. I didn't know. Sorry. Okay. About this code sandbox, to most of us, we are not really familiar because like this now, it's the way I'm looking at it is not some kind of a user friendly, unlike the VS Code. I don't get. Maybe you can kind of throw more light on it before we continue, please.
Okay, for
Yeah.
code sandbox box is just basically your HTML, your Visual Studio Code. Let me open my Visual Studio Code so that you can see it. Confirm you can see my Visual Studio Code. It's coming
Can
up.
see it.
Okay. Code Sandbox is just, like I said, Code Sandbox is just an online version of Visual Studio Code. They basically still do the same thing. This is what a Visual Studio Code looks like. This is what a Visual Studio Code looks like. And you don't necessarily need all this in your you don't necessarily have to download Visual Code Sandbox on your system because it's an online IED. And always that's sorry, I can't pronounce your name very well, but you can unmute and speak. Yesirat, if I pronounce this right. I'm sorry, I don't want to murder your name. You can unmute and speak.
Yeah, sorry, it took some time. Yeah, I wanted to ask that can I use it on my phone since it's an online software?
Yes, you can actually use it on your phone, but the user experience on the mobile phone is not going to be good.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's going to be too small, and at every point when it's small like that, it's not going to be easier for you to see. So most times you just have to open it on a system, or you can still use it on your phone, which is very good, but you you won't have a very good user experience. That's just the difference. That's just the issue there.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, so Ajirola. Sorry, I'm sorry I didn't pronounce your name very well. Yeah, so just speak. I want to show you a demo of how the HTML structure looks like. Yeah, go ahead, Ajirola.
Good morning. Sorry, my name is Ajilola. So I wanted to ask, I opened Code Box online. They're saying try it for free. Is it a paid application? Sorry, website.
Well, there is a free version and there's a paid version. Since you are not going to be using it for so long, you can always make use of the free version. And since it's for personal use, there's always a free version for the personal use. So it's good. You don't necessarily need to have a paid account for you to make use of Code Sandbox. I make use of Code Sandbox for personal stuff. So it's just for personal reason. The account I opened is actually a free account. I don't need to pay a dime for it. So that's it. Did I respond to your question properly?
Yes, sir.
All right. So yeah, so this is how the HTML page looks like. You can name it anything. You can name it dog.html. The thing that actually matters is that you are naming it HTML. I'm still going to go back to Code Sandbox. Some people are saying it's working on their own end, but I don't know. Mine is still sorry, you can always put down your hand. I don't know. Mine is having issues. Probably is. It happens sometimes like that. So what you basically just need for your HTML is you just have to, you can name it anything. It can be dog.html, it can be cat.html, it can be your name.html, but what your VS Code is going to read is the extension behind it, which is HTML. If you want to write your CSS, it's also going to be cat.css, cat.css, the extension, what is always reading is the cat, is the CSS behind it. So if it's dog, if it's cat, so far you have an extension behind it. That's what it does. And every programming language has their own different extension. If it's for JavaScript, you have index.js. You have, if it's for PHP, you have index.php, and on and on and on like that. So your HTML, you just have to name it. You just have to give it a name. You just have to give it a name, and you have your your HTML in front of it. Then you have your HTML up and running. So for this class, I'll be switching between VS Code and Code Sandbox, because of some people don't have, not everybody has Visual Studio Code installed on their system. And I would advise you, from the next class, we'll be making use of Visual Studio Code. You have to download Visual Studio Code. Is anyone having issues downloading Visual Studio Code on their system? Do we all know how to download Visual Studio Code? I'm sure 70 to 80% of us know how to use Visual Studio Code. But regardless of that, this is basically where, just go to VS Code on your Visual Studio Code on Google, and just insert it. You have your different options. Download for Mac, Linux, and Windows. So anyone you download is actually good. So once you download it, you don't need something serious to run your HTML, your Visual Studio Code. So far, your system is a minimum of, I advise people, but a minimum of 4 gig RAM and 500 gigabyte of space is good enough to run Visual Studio Code. But along the line, as you go forward in advanced programming languages, you just have to upgrade it. But for now, you don't need anything serious. You don't need any other extensions behind your system, or download any additional package on your system to run Visual Studio Code. No, Deborah, you can't download Visual Studio Code on your phone. Okay, there's a question from YouTube. Where do I go to start coding on Code Sandbox? You just go to codesandbox.io. Codesandbox.io. So if you go to codesandbox.io, you have to create an account, which I did earlier. If you just click on start for free, once you have start for free, then it shows you an account. So either create an account or log in if you have an account. So that is the both ways it goes. And if you have an account, you log in and you come here, you have your workspace. Okay, let me go back. I think some of our folks on YouTube don't have access to this. So let me log in again. Let me just do a rundown demo of how to access Code Sandbox. Okay, so this is for Code Sandbox. This is how Code Sandbox looks like. This is my dashboard. This is my dashboard. If you log into Kodecamp, Code Sandbox, let me increase my screen. If you log into Code Sandbox, this is how your screen is going to be like. Then you have to come to this learning. Once you click on learning, once you click on this on your top left corner, you will see create my workspace. Once you click on create my workspace, you create your workspace name, which is, let me say, teaching. Okay, for teach, you just have to select. This is where I said it is free. You don't need to go for a paid version or anything. Just select free. And after you have selected free, it loads up it goes back to your dashboard, and you come back here and you can see you have your workspace there. So you select the workspace you want to work on. And I have created a workspace here already, which is learning. And I gave the name Introduction to HTML, which is under my learning. So after you have created your workspace, yeah, it has an integration into Visual Studio Code. If you can check on this right hand side of my screen where we have this, you can see Visual Studio Code. I can open Visual Studio Code if I have it directly on my system. So it's integrated to Visual Studio Code, and everything you need to do is just right in there. So you don't need something big to run it on your system. But if you don't have Visual Studio Code, that is why it's advisable for you to make use of Code Sandbox, and is actually user friendly and all. So please confirm you can see my screen. Yeah, I just have to zoom in better so that others can see through it. So this is the structure of an HTML page. All what you have here is the basic structure of an HTML page, which is what you are seeing on the page. You have for every HTML page, you have to have an identifier, which is the doc type at the top here. If you remove this doc type from your HTML page, while you are kind of creating it, even in Visual Studio Code, this your doc type has to be there. It is telling there are various kind of doc type which your computer is going to read, since it's a markup language. It is HTML is the doc type. You can have an Excel doc type. If you put an Excel doc type here, it's going to interpret your file when it's being compiled as Excel. But if it has HTML, you know that okay, this is HTML, and it's going to interpret it as HTML for while it's compiling your browser, when it's compiling the output in your browser. So we have the language. We are in Nigeria, so our general language is English. That is what this ENG stands for. So you'll be wondering, how are those people in China who don't speak English, how do they write their code? Well, this is what reads the code for them, HTML, and gives them an English version. But sometimes you are in Nigeria here and you are building an application for people that is in Saudi Arabia and other countries to use, and once it gets to them there, it converts it to their local language. It is something done in JavaScript, which we are going to talk about later on in the future. So you have this. Okay, YouTube. I have a question from YouTube. What template are we using? DevBox or Sandbox? You can either use DevBox or Sandbox. Anyone is good, but it's advisable for you to use the DevBox. It's just advice. There's no really difference between both of them. Just use the DevBox because it's DevBox you're actually using right here. Thank you. So you have your header. In your HTML, you have something called header. Your HTML structure is divided into three. Which is the doc type, the header, and your body. Your HTML component. If you can see now, if you can see very well, you can see that I have an HTML wrapped around everything. On line 2, everything is wrapped inside the HTML. So that's an element tag saying that, okay, this is confirming that all what I am writing is basically HTML. Then I have my header. Whatsoever is inside this header is not seen by your browser. It's not seen by your user. It's read by your browser, but it's not seen by your users. That's where you put in your title. If you go to a website, you would always see on your Google Chrome, for the tab, you will see the name of your website there, which the title of our website here is HTML plus CSS, and a style sheet is linked to it, which is for CSS. Excuse me. So in your header, you have this, the latest version of C# is 8, which is what is compiled, which is what is used to compile your code. These are some of the things your browser use internally to read your code. And for the visual port, this is used for responsiveness. Along the line, when you go, you'll be talking about responsiveness. When you build a website, not all your users are going to be accessing your website on a laptop. Some will be accessing your website on a phone. Some will be accessing your website on a tab, and some may be accessing your website on a very large screen, and a very wide screen. So you can't use the same structure for, you can't use the same screen size for your mobile and your web version. Your design is going to be distorted and it's not going to be readable. So that is why on every device, your initial scale on every device is going to be 1.0. Even if I change this to 2.0 now, it's going to increase the scale of what is on my screen if I'm working with responsiveness. So yeah, I have mentioned this easy. We will be using Visual Studio Code. This is just an introduction into HTML and CSS, just to tell you how it feels. We will eventually, from the next class, we'll be using Visual Studio Code, which is the IED we'll be using, which is the text editor we are going to be using. We are going to be making use of Visual Studio Code, definitely. From the next class till the end of this training, we'll be using Visual Studio Code. Thank you. Yeah, you can only see 2 tags, which is, I only have 2 tags, which is meta element instead of the 3 in your header tag. Hope there's no problem. No, there's no problem actually. There's no problem. It's just, if you can see, you have the link. I have a style sheet linked here, a metal and a title. But these three metal tag are very important. They are very, very important. If you don't have these 3 metal tag or in your header, there is going to be an issue if you are going to run your code on a browser at this point. You have to have 3 inside your header tag. You can just use your hand to write it, which is for compatibility sake. This metal HTTP PQ compatibility is to make it compatible across all browsers. You know, all browsers are not the same. The default browser which VS Code try to connect with is Microsoft Edge. You know the reason why it connects to Microsoft Edge? It is because Microsoft are the one that built Visual Studio Code. So the baseline, what is used to read the content of your Visual Studio Code on your browser is read from Internet Explorer. But you know, most of us, we don't use Internet Explorer. We use Chrome, which is actually similar. It's just so far you have this compatibility here across all browsers. All the design are going to be the same. Then you have your title, which is HTML plus CSS. You have your style sheet. Even if I want to link a JavaScript file here now, there are 2 ways I can link a JavaScript file, which is inside the body, which is inside the header, or inside the body. If the reason why most people if you link your JavaScript, your JavaScript file inside your HTML, inside your header, one of the reasons is because when your code is being interpreted, is read from the top to bottom. That is from the left side, from the top to the bottom, that way, in that order. It happens in split seconds. You don't really know when it's being compiled, but everything happens in a split seconds, and you just see this design you have on the right hand side, which is HTML plus CSS templates. So if I do my link, not this is going to be a rel, is going to be script. I have to have a index.js. Let me create an index.js file here. Sorry. Okay. So I want to create a file. I just do my index.js, which is my JavaScript file, which I've created already. And I've linked it inside my head. Most people, they write their JavaScript file at the top. Some write it inside the body. The reason why they write their JavaScript file inside the body is because they want their JavaScript file to load last. While your compiler is interpreting your code, it reads, okay, your CSS file comes first, your JavaScript file comes second, and sometimes you don't want your JavaScript file to load until all the content of your website has loaded before you have it on your screen. So that's why sometimes we use a default statement here. The reason why, if you use a default statement in your JavaScript, it's going to defer your JavaScript from loading until everything on your page has loaded before it starts running to your JavaScript. So that is all about JavaScript, which I'm not going to be focusing on for now. Just a brief introduction into it. So now you have your body element. Everything on your website, all the information you have on your website goes into your body element, which is, let me clear this one now. Let me clear this H1 we have here now. If we check now, if my browser is going to load, let me reload it. There's also a browser here for it. You can see I have nothing on my web page. Everything needed. Okay, Afolabi, you have a question. Go ahead. You can unmute and speak, Afolabi. Afolabi, kindly unmute and speak. All right, I think Afolabi is having a network issue. So once you are back, just kindly unmute and speak. So for your HTML, for all your elements, everything you're going to be writing inside your HTML, it has to go into your body tag. And if you don't write inside the body tag, it's never going to be displayed. If I write an H1 content here, it's going to throw an error. It's going to throw an error. And it's not going to show. Everything about your body element has to go into everything about your, sorry, did something wrong here. Everything about your header, every content about your website has to go into the body. That is how Visual Studio Code is designed. Everything in this header is not related to your user. It's just for the browser. It's for your browser to be able to read the content of your website. That is why you have it in your header. When you have it right here in your body, everything is going to show, because the body is what your clients are going to see, or what your users are eventually going to see. And okay, I have H1, you have the hello. So in HTML, there are different kind of ways to write. There are different kind of tags from H1 to H6. The H1 to, sorry, this class is just a broad overview of what you are going to be doing all through this period. So I might not really go deep into HTML, but by the next class, we'll have a robust discussion about it. Sorry, I have some hand raised. I called you the other time. Rahim, you can unmute and speak.
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, thanks for the lecture. Now, on the H1 tag we use,
Yeah.
the output is showing underlined.
Yeah.
Is there any command indicating that? or it's
No,
just
there's
the
no
actual?
command. There's no command. I think it is from actually called sandbox. I can actually restyle this. Um, you can actually style this. Let me go to my style sheet. I'm coming. Let me open my style sheet.
So that's how sandbox display.
Yeah, that's how cool sandbox. There are some default styles that they do. I'm coming. Let me. No, they have a style. That's not the way it's done. There's a style written in the index.css. I'm coming. Let me open the index.css file. Sorry, I'm trying to open my. I minimized it the other time. So if we check the style CSS, you can see that this H1 style, H1 tag
Please,
is styled
church.
as underlined.
Oh.
Yeah, can you unmute? Can you mute your mic, please? Who is? Can you mute your mic? Who is speaking right there? Yeah. So can you see that there's a style written in your CSS which is called H1 underline, which I just removed just now. Can you see?
Yeah,
Confirm
I
you can
can
see.
see.
So
I
it
think
is from the CSS that
okay.
underline is coming from.
Okay, I think that is it. Then
Yeah.
the second question, you were saying something about the JavaScript, internal or external.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with the loading of the page as a
Yeah,
response?
it has some the position of your JavaScript has a lot of things to do with your page. The reason why is because therefore there are some information that are loaded inside your JavaScript. For example, now you are making an API call from your from an external page. Most times it's all what you need. Like now you want your users to be able to log in, or you are getting information from a different website entirely into your own website. The moment you have your JavaScript at the top level, if you have your JavaScript at the top level here, if you have your JavaScript at the top level here, it is actually going to read the file same way like that. So most of those information might not yet have arrived because you are calling it from a different place. There might be a network delay or something. They won't have arrived from that point. And at that time, when okay, sorry, I'm reading a question from the chat box, but there's no problem. At that time when you are trying to load all your files, when you are trying to load information on your page, there is those information might not have arrived, and it's going to distort your design. Maybe some of the information is like the name of the user and stuff like that. It is coming from that external website which you are calling through an API. By the time it arrives and everyone is not there and it's not there yet, it's going to distort your design. So if you use a default statement, your JavaScript is not going to load until everything on your website, every dummy text on your website has loaded. So from then, when the information has now arrived, it now fill in the gap because HTML run in a synchronous format. HTML runs in a synchronous format. Let me use that word. They run line by line, and if the information for line 8 has not yet arrived, information for line 9 will not now run. That's why I use the default statement. So that is why some people, instead of them using the default statement, they now remove their HTML. They remove the JavaScript file from the top level and put it at the last. They put it inside the body, but not at the top level, at the bottom. Sorry. They put it at the bottom. That is after every code must have run. They allow their JavaScript file to load last. They allow their JavaScript files to load that. So if you check some code base, you would most likely see that their JavaScript is at the top level or is at the down part inside the body. That is going to be the last line. That's going to be the last line of code before the closing tag of the body. Hope I answered your question, Rahim.
Yeah, you did.
All right.
But which one is the best standard? Do we have any best standard?
Well, the best is just for readability's sake. The reason why is because it's more advisable to you put your JavaScript in your header tag and use the default statement, which is when I was writing HTML and CSS. I do put my JavaScript at the bottom, but after working with other senior colleagues, they were like, okay, it's advisable. It's just there's no really difference. It's just based on personal preference, actually. It's based on personal preference. So, but industry standard, which is what Codecamp stand upon, is just for you to put it at your header, inside your header, and put a default keyword. Once you put a default keyword, it's not going to load until everything on your screen has loaded. Hope you understand, Rahim.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, all right. Yes, Sirat, please, your hand
Yes,
is still
sir.
raised. All right.
Yeah, I noticed in your H1 tag, you put the H1 that the closing tag is before the slash. So, and I tried it, but the slash is having a red, like it's.
You're using it in Visual Studio Code, right? Are you using it in Visual Studio Code?
Yes, I'm using Visual. Yes.
Yeah. The reason why sometimes it's going to work, but Visual
Yeah,
Studio
it
Code is
actually
telling
worked when I actually opened it with
yeah,
the
if you open it
server.
on your browser, it's going to
Yes.
work. But by the time you push to production, by the time you want to launch, it's going to tell you that there's an error there, because the
Oh,
standard practice is that your slash has to go after,
before.
it has to go before the closing tag.
Okay.
That's the way it actually works. But well, you can make mistakes. Everyone make mistakes. Just like the
All right.
mistake I made. Though it's working, but if I want to host it if I want to make it live that other people outside can access it, it's going to indicate that there's an error there. So those are slight mistakes that we overlook, but eventually in production, it will definitely catch up with you, and you have to start looking for it. So well, I need to answer some questions from YouTube. Let me check the chat box. Okay. Eket, I thought this is supposed to be a beginner class. This is sounding very advanced to me. Wow. Well, I am telling you that this is I don't know. Eket, AK, sorry, Godfrey. Let me call you Godfrey. Yeah, you can always ask your question, because this is taking you back to the rudiment. Like I am explaining this like a 5-year-old student to a 5-year-old child. That is the way I teach. Well, I can see your colleagues are responding to you on the chat, so that is okay. There's a question here. The script tag is used to link our GS internally, and link tag is okay. Well, I can use a link tag. It doesn't matter actually. I can use a script or a link. It it still gives me the same it still gives me the same result, but you can see I actually use the link first and I change it into a script. It is different. So, okay, question from YouTube again. Could that be the reason why the text on some pages load before the functional? Yes, that is why your JavaScript is your text are dummy informations right inside that's what you wrote yourself. But your JavaScript are used as functionalities. Okay, you're calling an API is a functionality which is from a different place. That is why let me use a word like, okay, if you are trying to sign in into your bank app, after you have written, you will see that you have your sign-in page already loaded. That is information which was hard coded by the developer. But by the time you click the login button, you will see a loading. They don't want you to go to that page first before the information arrives. They want you to get there, that the information has been there already. But most times, you still see that even after it has logged in, there's still going to be some delay, from like 5-10 minutes delay, 2-3-5 minutes delay before all your information are filled inside your account. So after you have logged in, that is why those default words are written there. You see something like welcome back, then in front of that welcome back, your name is going to be there. Though the app has opened, but your information is yet to yet to arrive. Yet your information is yet to arrive. That is why you have it like that. So that's why if you use the default keyword, it's going to load. Just an observation. I think any question above beginner level should wait. There is no more need for Java. Well, oh, sorry. Let's just focus on HTML. I'm just giving an overview. So, like I said, we have the H1 tag, we have the H2 tag. One of the differences between the H1 tag and the H2 tag is that it differs in sizes. It differs in sizes. So the H1 tag is actually bigger than the H2 tag. Let me write another one, Kodecamp. Another reason why I advise people to actually use Code Sandbox is because with Visual Studio Code, most of these errors I'm making of trying to close it, try to write the closing tag, most of them are not going to be visible. Visual Studio Code automatically writes them for me, and I am done. Classes. Come on, let me write the 6 tags so that someone can point out the differences for me. Yeah, if you have any question, you can drop it in the chat box. So can someone point out the differences in these 3 elements I have written down? Can someone point out the differences? I know there are some obvious differences. So, okay, whose hand am I seeing? I'm seeing Paul. Your hand is raised. Do you want to tell me the differences?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the higher you go from the number, the lower the font size that is seen on the screen. It means that the H1 has higher font size, while the H2 have lower. So when you get to H5, that's how the font size is decreasing.
Okay. Yeah, that is it. H1 is the size actually, and most times in H1 tag I always use for headings. If you want to, though there are ways we can manipulate it in CSS. I can actually make my P tag to be very big, should be bigger than the H1 tag. Let me do that, and I would ask you for the differences again. Just a second. So you can see the P tag and the H1 tag, they're almost the same size. Am I right? Paul. Hello, Paul.
Yes, you're right. You're right. You're right.
So it's just that the normal font size for the H1 is the highest. I think the H1 according to is 16 pixel. If you the default size of our browser for our font size is actually 16 pixel. So most times, if you use an H1, an H1 is 16 pixel, and H2 is 14 pixel, and H3 is 12 pixel, just like that. And the P tag is actually 5 pixel, I think 8 pixel thereabout. Please, what's the difference between font size and font width? Well, that is in CSS. Font size and font width is you make it bold. If you are using what's the name? Your Microsoft Word. If you write a statement, okay, you write and you do Control B, is to make it bold. It's the different kind of font weight. The font weight is actually okay, make it more bold or make it lighter. That's the difference. But the font size is to increase the size. Okay, the font size is if you're on your Microsoft Word, if you make it a font size of 3, I think it's 10 or 12. If you make it a font size of 12, it's going to make it bigger. While if you make it if you use a Control B, it makes it bold. That's the difference. Did you FCBA? Hope you got that. So and also in HTML, there are also various tags such as in HTML there are semantic tag and there are non-semantic tag. Semantic tag are such as your H1. Semantic tags are H1. Okay. Semantic tags are tags that gives you a definite understanding of what this tag is actually doing, such that you know an H1 is an heading tag, a P tag is a paragraph tag, an IMG is for an image. What is there again? A section tag. A section tag is also a semantic tag. It is telling you that these pages are divided into sections. These pages are divided into sections. No, this ID is not. ID is a different thing entirely. An ID is something different entirely. ID is not a tag. ID is called an identifier, which is going to be used in CSS. Okay, let me use this. Let me use this here. Let me use an ID. So this P tag now, if I go to my CSS, let me refresh this. This is supposed to go away. The font size I gave it here is supposed to go away. Okay. Let's do this. Let's remove this P tag here and do this. ID not showing. ID, and you're supposed to be ID. Your ID is an identifier to show forth of what you have done. Why is the ID not working? Hash. Yeah. Let's select a font ID. Sorry, I'm actually doing the wrong thing. It's supposed to be hash go, which is the ID I gave it here. Yeah. So if we reload it, you can see the ID is actually pointing to the element. So in the HTML tag, these are just various HTML tags from sections to article to text area. There's something called text area. Something called text area, and so there are over 1,000 semantic HTML code, which is used to define what a particular element is actually doing. And there's also the form element, which is this. The form element is basically what we use for forms. The form element is basically what we use to get all the forms that you see are built on every website. It is forms that are used to build it. They can use a form, then you have an input element. These are various type. So there are various kind of tags, which is the one above here is the text area, the one below it is the form, and is the input field rather. So most times the form is just a wrap around element which every users can just see. You don't see it. When I did a form, most times the input field goes into the form like this. The input field goes into the form like this, and we have it like this. So the form is not seen, but the input field is seen. And we have various type of input fields, such as if you write a number, it's just telling a user that each of these fields can only accept if I write a number here now. In this first one, it's supposed to be a text. It's accepting it, but if I write a number here, if I write a text on the other one, it's not going to go through. A number is also regarded as a string. It's just telling them that, okay, any information you write in the first part is always a text. It's always a text. Then the next one, if you write, I'm trying to write a letter J and O inside this tag, inside this second input field, but it's not going. The only thing that is acceptable there is a number. There is also one for password. What a password does is it's just going to max every letter I'm going to write inside. Any number I write into the password field is going to max it. And also, that's a brief of the semantic HTML tags that we have. You can see I'm writing some information into the password field, is maxing it, so nobody can actually see what I'm writing, though I am writing some things inside it. And for non-semantic HTML tags, these are non-semantic HTML tags. If you do something like this, which is sometimes you would see in many code bases, which is just this. Once you write a div, you are just using it to create a section out of. It's just like you creating a section, but it's a non-semantic tag. It's a non-semantic tag all the way. So that is what a div does. There is also something called span. Span is not a semantic tag, it's a non-semantic tag actually. We also have what are non-semantic tags? There are other various kind of non-semantic tags. Other semantic tag includes HUL. The UL is for ordered and unordered list. Sorry, does anyone have any question? Okay, Paul, you have a question. Please unmute and speak.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I actually don't have a question. I have an observation.
Okay.
I observed that in the comment section, it's supposed to be a section where.
Paul, hold on. Don't worry about that. Just don't worry. If that's what you wanted to say, don't worry. That's what I want to. Address. Okay. Akimbola, please just check the chat right now. I'm sending you a direct message. Okay. So, I've noticed, yes, on the chat, it seems that there are some persons who um, want to actually, show that they are smart. And these people, I detest such character, right? This is a beginner class, right? If you feel you already have understanding of what is being taught, maybe you have started self-learning or you have some knowledge before you came in, right? I'll suggest you keep quiet. The next person I see dropping any question or anything that kind of tries to take the class ahead of what it should be, I won't just kick you out of the Zoom. Your internship will end, right? Your learning ends here because you're showing me that you already know. Let's be responsible. I detest irresponsible people. And that's not what we do here in Codecamp. We don't raise people that are unscrupulous and don't have character, who are all about themselves. Okay, this is a beginner class. Okay, if you have questions with what your trainer has said, right, that you probably don't understand, that's fine. But if you're asking questions that is a bit advanced and you're trying to push your trainer to go, away from what he or she is showing them, you're basically telling me that, okay, I shouldn't actually be in this call. I should be somewhere else. And I know where to put you. And that is not in the Codecamp. So let's take notes on that. It's very, very, very important. Allow people to learn. If you feel you know it, drop off the call. When they get to the place where you're very knowledgeable about, then you can actually join classes and move on from there. If you feel we are doing something that you already know, right? Thank you very much. Akim Bokola, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, IKs. I want you all to know that this is a beginner-friendly class. We are starting all from the basics. So I have not been able to check the chat box, but please, let's be one. Or do you want us to disable the chat box so that people don't talk? We can't do that. So, all right. I would do something just now. Kindness, you have a question. Please speak.
Okay, good afternoon, sir. Please, I would like to know what the div tag is for. Like, what's the function of the div and the span tag? Maybe I
Okay.
missed when you said that.
Yeah, all right. For the div tag is a non-semantic HTML tag, which such that I can use a div to build it won't, how will I put it? The div actually is just a tag. It's just like a placeholder. Let me use that word, placeholder, for you to just hold stuff together. Now, if I'm writing a div now, a div, if I have a div like this, I can write an h1 tag inside the div. I can write an h1 tag inside the div. It's going to group everything all together. Let me write an h2 tag. It's going to group everything all together. It's just like grouping elements together. That is what a div is used for. Okay, the div is let me use the word container. The div is a container used to hold everything all through together. Let me use the word container. Let me don't use the word grouping. Grouping might sound very abstract somehow. It's actually a container that is used to hold everything all together. So that is. Did I answer your question, kindness?
Yes,
Hello,
sir.
kindness.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, sir. You answered. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. So for the span tag is also an inline element. The span tag is an inline element which is just going to occupy. Okay, now between the semantic HTML tag, some of them are block elements and some of them are inline elements. A block element involves an element that occupies just a full width of itself. You can see now when we add this h1 tag, this h1 which is heading 1, a h1 tag stands for heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, heading 5, heading 6, which is basically used for heading, which are basically used for heading. And also the heading tags are called block elements. They occupy a full width. If you see the H1 tag, which I wrote first, you can see that when I wrote the H2 tag, it came underneath it. That means the H1 tag is occupying the full width of those elements that we have. It's occupying the full width. That is, the length is occupying the whole space to the right hand side of the screen. But if you check the input elements, which I wrote down here, these input elements, which are these form elements, which I have down here, input fields are inline elements. They basically just occupy the width of the element that is needed. That is the same thing for span. If I write a span here now, it's just going to occupy the full width of that element. It's just going to occupy the full width of that element that is written there, which is this HENNNE. If I write another span, it's going to go beside it, not below it. That is what a span is. That's the major difference between most of all these tags. Some are block elements and some are inline elements. So we have that. So you can see now the second span tag I wrote is occupying just the total width of what is needed. Does anyone have any question? Do you have any question? There's no question. So can we continue? Okay, Raim, you have a question. Please go ahead. Raim, you can unmute and speak.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I said I need more explanation on the difference between section and div. If there is
okay. Section and div are the only difference basically there is that section is a semantic HTML tag, while div is a non-semantic HTML tag. Section can be used as a container, while div is also a container. It's just the difference between both of them is that section is a semantic tag, while div is a non-semantic tag. If your browser, according to search engine, if search engine is going to rate if you are not using any SEO, you are just using the normal. If you are just using the normal HTML, tag, the H1, the H2, and the likes, you are basically going to zoom it. You are basically going to have an high ranking in SEO than someone that is using just a div tag, basically. Did I get your question? Did I get your question right? Do you understand what I said, Raim?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
There's someone else raising his hand. Who is that? Chinelo. Please go ahead.
All right, sir. I really want to know what you mean by non-semantic and semantic tag, and also the article. What is it used for? The article tag.
Okay.
And lastly, is it advisable to be using span to make sure that the elements are on the same line?
Okay. Your first question that I asked is you want to know the difference.
No, I don't really understand what you mean by semantic and non-semantic tag.
Okay. Semantic tags are tags that define the meaning of the content inside they contain. Like an H1 is telling you that this is an heading tag. That is what a semantic tag means. And a non-semantic tag is just you having a container using to hold something. Okay, now you have various containers in the house. Inside one container, you have sugar inside. Inside another container, you have salt inside. That is this particular container. You are using it. That salt that you wrote on it, it is basically designed to just hold salt inside. But you have a different container, which is just a carton, which you just put so many different things inside. That is what a div does. If someone just picks this container now, it sees salt in front of it, you know that, okay, This container, the only thing I can put inside is a salt, while the non-semantic tag, where the other non-semantic container that you have, which is not labeled, is that you can put anything inside. It doesn't affect it. You can't put a fuel, you can't put water into a fuel jerry can. Actually, it's going to be contaminated. So that is just the difference between a non-semantic. Is particularly you are defining that, okay, this one is an H1 tag, this is an heading1 tag, which is it doesn't have any variance. If you go to US, if you go to Canada, everywhere H1 is always an H1 tag. Did I get your question, Chinelo?
Yes, the second one, which is I don't really understand what you mean by article type.
Okay, an article is that, when you want to quote someone, if you see some websites, you have a quotation where there's always a quote. That is, you are citing someone. By the time you use an article, you are citing an individual. You are citing an individual. Let me write something inside the article. I'm coming. You will see it's going to come out. Where is it? This article is telling you that, okay, this is attaching to someone. That's where you would have a big quotation, sort of. Yeah, that's what an article is for. Is to attach. An article is just to attach different. Is to attach what an individual has said. Okay, now, so you are trying to quote someone. Let me use it. Okay, you are trying to quote. Okay, this speaker said so and so. If you want to write it inside your HTML tag for semantic purposes, you can actually just use an article. Once you wrap it around an article, your search engine, your browser is going to read it that, okay, this stuff is actually an article. It is quoting someone, what someone has said in the past, or something like that. Paul, you are unmuting. I don't know why you're unmuting, Paul. I don't know why you're unmuting, Paul. So did I answer your question properly? Did you get what I said?
Yes, sir. Yes, I did.
Okay. Yeah, someone is asking what is the difference between the tags and the text elements? Okay, the input field. The input field is just an input field. If you do this, it's just an input field. You're still going to have an input field as we have it here. But when the type now comes in, you're now trying to tell your browser that, okay, the only kind of thing I want inside this particular input field. You can see this input field, the first input field here. I just add an input field. I can write anything inside, including special characters. But for the other one, which has an element type of number, the only kind of information that can go into it is only numbers. I'm trying to press letter A, Z, and every other thing. It's not going into it. It's only a number that can go into it. When I have the type of password, the password is telling my browser that, okay, this field is a password field. And when you're writing your password is not always visible to individuals. Your password comes in dotted form. Who can read the information behind the dotted form? Nobody can read it. That is why it's like that. We also have a type of email that is informing your user that, okay, I'm coming. You now see so you can see that if you don't write a dot and at to this information field, it's not going to go through. By the time, if you want to submit this form, it has to be like this at Gmail. The type serves as let me use the word. The type serves as a validation, because your form is used to collect information from your individuals. It serves as a validation for the information that you are collecting from your users. That is it. So do you get who asked that question? Amadi, do you understand what I meant by um
Yes.
the semantic? You understand, right?
Yes.
All
Thank you.
right. So you're welcome. So nobody else another. Should I continue? Our time is fast spent. We have some few minutes left. I want to use this time to kind of. Do you have any question? Should there be an overview of what I've said? I don't want it to. It has been a long 1 hour plus class, so there are some. I know there are still going to be some gray areas in what we're actually doing. There is no doubt because some people don't have not worked with this before. So, does anyone have any question you want me to shed more light on? Okay, kindness, go ahead.
Okay, it's not really a question, it's just an observation.
Okay,
The input order under the font tag,
yeah,
is it a self-closing tag? Because I know that like an opening tag doesn't have a slash like when closing, like when you're
okay,
done putting the things you
okay.
want
The
to put
thing
under
is,
them.
before what we're actually using now is HTML5. Before HTML5, all these there were no self-closing tag. So the input field before, if it was before now, you have to, for the image, you have to do something like this. You have to do something like this. So your image is going to go
Okay.
into it. But now that you're in HTML5, which is an upgraded version of HTML4, all these input tag, image tag, they are all self-closing tag. That is what they do. It's just the reason why
Oh,
it's a self-closing tag is because it's just an upgrade. They're already reducing some of the ambiguity. They're already reducing some of the tags you are going to write as a self-closing tag. That is what you are going to do. There's no necessary. You can, if you write it as input tag with a closing tag, it's still going to work. But it's just because of HTML5, which is the latest version we are using. That is why it's a self-closing tag. Did I get your question, Emmanuel? Kindness.
yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Paul, your hand is raised.
Yes, I wanted you to throw more light on the structure of every like that structure you said the other time, doc type, header, and body. You know,
Okay.
a lot of people will not know that, you don't know a lot of things about where to start their code. They might go and start it in the heading, or they may start it in the body. So it's just throw more light there.
Okay, all right, that's fine. I will do that. Just before I answer your question, there is someone from YouTube. There are two questions from YouTube. Wisdom is saying that. So, what is the best to use between section and div tag? Well, for semantic purposes, you have to use section, but it's just preference. Let me use the word preference actually. It's actually preference. Along the line, when you begin to write code, you might begin to forget some of this syntax. The only thing that comes to your head is you want to use a div. You want to group something together. You just use a div. That's basically, there's no. It's just for semantic purpose. Let me just use the word semantic purpose and based on preference. Wisdom. Hope I got your question right. And also, there's also another question here in the chat box from YouTube, which says, I'm coming. I just scrolled past it. Okay. Life of Siwalashe. Okay. Please, how did how come did please how did you come up with those boxes you are writing something inside? That is the input field. Those boxes are input field actually. So input field are used to collect data from users on your website. If you are trying to log into your bank app, your email field is an input field. Your password field is an input field. That is it. Hope I got your question right, to share. Someone is asking, is there a list? Is there a list of all HTML tags? Yes, there are. There are over there are over 1,001 HTML tags, which which some of them you might not eventually use. If you go to W3 schools and you just click on HTML, you see the list of HTML tags that are there. If you go to MDN documentation and you click on the HTML section, which is, let me show you, MDN doc, MDN, which is this. You can see that there are so many tags which we have not even covered. There's the title, there's the head, there's the title, there's the body, there's header, there's footer, there's article, there's section, there's P, there's div, there's span, there's image, there's aside, there's audio, there's Canva, and lots like that. Even I would say that since I've started writing code, I have not used an audio tag before. I have not used a data list before. I have not used an embedded. I've not used a progress rather. I've not used a video. These are tags, but you necessarily might not use them along the line. It's just for informational purposes, because it's just for, Java. HTML is just a markup language, as it says. So you don't necessarily have to know them that much, but having them at the back of your mind to know what you are going to use at a particular time is actually what is best. So I was going to explain the HTML structure once again. The HTML structure is just a three-step structure after you have your doc type. At this doc type point here now, it is telling your browser that, okay, this file that I'm writing in is an HTML document, despite having the fact that you have an extension of .html here. Actually, you might have a .html document, an index.html document, but you are writing an Excel and you make a mistake here, writing an exclamation mark doc type Excel. He's still going to read it. You're writing a wrong file inside your HTML, though it's going to work on your local machine. But by the time you are going to host it on a web browser or a web server, it's going to throw an error, because the content inside your HTML file is supposed to be an HTML document, not an Excel document. There are various kinds of documents. You can write an Excel, that is, Excel extension is XLCL. I can't remember the extension of Excel, but if you do doc, which is for Microsoft Word, most of all these things are going to work on your local machine, but when it goes on a server, there's going to be an issue. So for the HTML here is also indicating, is wrapping everything as an HTML, that okay, yes, and you're defining a language that, okay, after you have assigned here that, okay, what I am writing is an HTML tag, it's an HTML element, you now have to wrap everything inside an HTML tag and give it a language. If you don't define a language, it's going to use the language you're writing in. You can write in French, that is RF. If you write an RF here, FR rather, it's going to interpret it as a French language. There are different kind of language code that you are going to use, but we don't need to go into that, since it's because what you are writing is in English and our different language is in English. So along the line, if you are in other places, once they do this, it automatically brings up their language from their system based on the location they have. So we are writing in English, that's why we set our language to English. And also I explained that this header is where all your information about your website is going to go to, such as your title, your script tag, your style sheet and the likes. That is where they are going to go into. While the meta HF tag is the engine that is used to read your documents. This they have been from UTF 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. What is used to read your document? If you check If you go to your Google Chrome or whatever browser you're using, if you check the network tab, you will see something called HTF8 right there. That is the engine that is used to read your that's what is used to compile your file. This file you are writing, this is not what is being displayed on the browser. There's a compiler at the back of the scene, which is actually compiling this document for your users to be able to see it. So I also explained that this your viewport is for your responsiveness. Every web browser has a different viewport, which is that, okay, I can set my own viewport on my own browser to 5.0 and the likes. But once my website is loaded on the user's browser, it automatically changes from whatsoever viewport, whatsoever scale it has on the user browser, it changes to 1.0. The default size is 1.0. It's not that changes to 2.0. It changes it to 1. It changes the scale on the user's website to 1.0 instantly, because it's going to distort a lot of things. If a user is having a 5.0 on his own web browser and your own browser and your own application is loading on a 1.0, it's going to actually distort the design. So everything you are building, you are bringing every browser, you are using every browser scale to a 1.0 once it's trying to load your own website. And I said that for your browser to be able to read the content that you have here, Visual Studio Code was built by Microsoft, and the default web browser for Microsoft is actually Internet Explorer Edge. So everything that you are writing, it is built on the understanding that, okay, everyone is using Edge as a browser, but we are not using Edge. We are not using Edge as a browser. We are using Google Chrome or whatever browser we are using. So it is this HTTP equal is compatibility, is making it compatible rather across all web browsers. That is what this XUA compatibility, that's what it's using, though it is reading it on an Internet Explorer device, which is the browser that is used to compile it behind the scene. And the title of this page is the title of your HTML page, which is what we are doing is in the HTML plus CSS, and we are using a style sheet. My style sheet is coming from this part. This is where I have my style sheet here, HTML style of CSS. So I'm trying to link my style sheet to this place, and here I have my script tag, which is used to link my JavaScript into it. So that is what your header tag is for. It's used to write all information that are needed to compile, that are used to compile everything that your browser will be running for your users. And for the body tag is where the major content of your website is going to go into. That is it. Every content you are seeing on your web browser is going into the body tag. So if you write your H1 tag, if you write an H1 tag inside your header, it's never going to display on your browser. It's never going to display on your browser. So that is why it's being segmented. We know that everything written into the header of your code is for your browser, is for the compiling machine behind the scene to be able to read it and give us a better output. While everything written into the body of your HTML is the content for your users to use. Paul, hope you got what I explained properly.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So at this point, I will take 2 more questions and we call it a wrap for the day, and we continue our conversation on Discord. I am always available on Discord to share more light to your question. So, Paul, your hand is raised. Do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question, please.
Okay.
My question is, when you started, especially when you use CodeSan,
Yeah.
you actually open a separate style sheet, I think,
Yeah.
where you link it. Also, you open a JS a link where you link them. Is it necessary when you are on a page that you are designing a page that is very short to normally do that? Is it like it's a normal practice to always have a separate page for each of those style like
Yeah.
CSS and
I
HTML?
get
Is
your
it
I get your question. So the
okay?
thing there is that for when you are writing your code, you can I won't go deep into it, but because you are still going to touch it later on, there are three kind of days: inline styling, there's external styling, and there's internal styling. So, but it's just standard practice that you have a separate file for everything. Not that okay, now you give someone your code to help you check it out. You build something for a client, and a client is trying to understand the code base and is just seeing everything all compiled or everything all modeled up together. It's just for readability sake. That is why it's advisable to have everything in a separate file. If you have if you have written 1,000 lines of code or over 5,000 lines of code, and your CSS is also in one page, and you're trying to make this your code camp color red, and you're trying to okay, where did I write this? Where did I write this? Where is this code camp located? Where is this code camp located? Is for readability sake. That is why it's advisable to have your your separate file for HTML, your separate file for CSS, and a separate file for index.html. But in some cases, you would still have to write an inline CSS and the likes. Hope I explained your question properly, Paul. Paul.
Yes, 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 yes. You've done well. Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. So I think at this point we have come to the end of. Okay, there's still someone hand raised. Whose hand is that? Steven, please unmute and speak.
Yeah. My network disturbed me when you are explaining this title part. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah, I can hear
Uh,
you.
where does this HTML process appears in the web page, like in this title?
Okay, it appears somewhere here. It appears on this tax bar. You can see your Chrome. You can see on your browser or anything. That title that is having that is there. I'm coming. Let me copy this link. It's actually that's the title of your website. Let me open it on another page. If I open it on another page, it's still going to be the same thing. You can see the top of my tax bar of my Google Chrome, my tab. Can you
Yes,
see
yeah,
it? You
yeah.
can see I have HTML plus CSS. That is where your title shows. That means every of this page has a title. They have a title attached to them. So hope you got my explanation, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Jane, please unmute and speak.
Okay. So I have a question.
All right.
So I think there was a time I started learning about HTML and how to build website on my own. Though I didn't really go far, but then for the few videos I watched, they were coding using the command prompts on the system. So I don't know, like, can we also like write this codes on the command prompts? I really don't understand.
Yeah, you can you can write code the same way you're writing code in Microsoft Word. You can, but it's not going to be compiled. You can write code in Notepad. You will now need a you will now need to compile it. But everything that you need is already done inside VS Code. There is an internal compiler which is attached to your browser, which is just going to compile your code and you're done. So you can actually write your code on anything. You can write it on paper and biro. So far, and if you want to view the results, you need a compiler to compile it together. Because now everything we have written here now, if I paste this line of code into a browser, it's not going to read it. Something has to compile everything together so that it is readable to use. These are just bunch of jargons, as they will say, to your to your machine to compile everything together so you can have it. Hope you got my explanation, Jane.
Yes, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. Oh, Dixon. Oh, sorry. Dickie Stanley. Who is the person writing on my screen, please? Dickie Stanley, please unmute and speak.
Okay, it's already 12. Okay, so I'll say good afternoon, guys, and everyone. First of all, let me start by saying thank you for the nice class. And what I want to say is not a question. I just want to the class has already ended. I've put a little word of encouragement because I've seen a lot of questions on the comment section. So what I want to say is for those of you who are trying to ask some advanced concepts, or maybe those of you are complaining that this is supposed to be a beginner class, this is what I would suggest for all of you, all of us. I've never seen a class that have been this simple before. Our mentor did all his best to even explain, like he said, like I'm five. I don't know if any one of you have ever heard something like I'm five. That statement means explaining something to somebody that is 5 years old. So I've never seen a class being tutored like this before. So what I would suggest to you is that we shouldn't depend on just this class alone. Make sure you are available like 100% in all your classes. Then after your classes, go do some research, read some blogs, read other people's code, then come to the Discord channel, ask questions. Continue doing that. Before you know, you become a beast at this thing. So this is the little thing I just.
Yeah, thank you. Francisca, please. Yeah, the last person I'm picking your question. So please go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're echoing, Francisca.
Okay.
Yeah?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly now.
Okay, so we're talking about something on Meta. I had to open my VS Code and check, and I noticed that it just had just two Meta, the one with the chassis and name. So and it's like inbuilt that way. Like when you press this shift exclamation mark and enter, it comes out. So I'm wondering why it has just two without the last one according to what I'm seeing on the screen.
Which and which? The one on your VS Code is UTF-8, right? It has the chassis and which other one? And the viewport switch, right?
Yes, it has the viewport.
Yeah, because the reason for that is that what's the name? Code Sandbox is actually, I would say it's because it's still an online editor, so it's still compiling it. It still has this line, but either ways, it's still going to work. If you have just two or three, I've not tried it. I've tried using two, but most of the one I have is three on my own VS Code. If I do that, it gives me three. Because the last time I used HTML, but I don't know of now. Maybe they may be changing. VS Code, they upgrade their machine. They upgrade every month. I think for last month they still upgraded. So that is how it is.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
So it does not really matter if it has the two.
No, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
All right.
The reason for this one is just for compatibility sake. That third one is just for compatibility sake, not any other thing. And your VS Code is compatible with any kind of device, any kind of web browser, be it Edge, Safari, Brave. It's all compatible with everything. That's just it. So, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and Paul, do you still have a question? Or?
No, I don't have, but I just maybe you can give me just small minute. Let me just thank you for like I've never seen even a video on YouTube this explanatory and very simple. Like I get some people might be ahead of their beginner class, but what I listened to whatever I actually jotted down a lot of things, but and I realized that I never even knew anything. Like I don't know anything. Okay. So there's those tag that you were mentioning. I've been looking for that tag like 50 years now. I've been looking for that
Yeah,
tag.
thank you very much.
I did not get.
Yeah,
And you
thank you
just
very much.
explained.
That was
Thank
one
you.
thing. Yeah? Okay. That was one thing Codecamp is for. Codecamp take it back to the basics. Codecamp is not your regular boot camp, which I can beat my chest to say is anywhere. Codecamp is not your regular boot camp where we just come here and we just bamboozle you. No, we take it deep and thorough. That's why I told you for these 4 months, be ready for a great adventure. This is just a tip of the iceberg. You will see more to go. Yeah. So, IK, you can stop recording. We have come to the end of the class. Is there any final word from IK or Imole? Hello?
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
for the class. Thanks to everyone that joined the call. Thank you